The Neo Geo Pocket Color came out in 1999. I thought it was an awesome handheld. You know, it was supposed to compete with the Game Boy Color. And while it didn't really grab too much market share back in the day, a lot of people do have nostalgia for this system. I think it's awesome. But like many, handhelds back in the day, we didn't have that backlit screen. So today we're going to be installing this IPS Q5 screen with an on-screen display as well. That is an option you have with this kit to be able to manipulate some things, and it actually works out very nicely. I also have this replacement shell I'm going to be using for this. As this Neo Geo Pocket Color, it's a little rough, not the worst one I've ever seen, but I just want to get this out, get this install going. It really is a fairly simple install. You don't have to solder anything unless you want to use that on-screen display. It does come with a couple little touchpads. We'll talk about that in a moment. I just showed there's like a tri-wing screw in my Neo Geo Pocket Color, just one. It's kind of strange. I don't know why there was a tri-wing screw when the rest of them are all Phillips head, but hey, it is what it is. So you just take those several screws off of the back, and then the board mounted to the other half of the shell, there's only 3 screws. So we have to get that out, pry up the little clicky stick nub, the nubular. I don't know what you want to call the thing, but we got to get that up, pry out the speaker, and then disconnect the screen from the board. But yeah, this is a fairly simple modification. Even with soldering the wires to do the on-screen display, took me around 20-25 minutes to get this whole thing done. Obviously, this video is edited to cut out all the fluff and me looking for screwdrivers and crap like that. But it was fairly simple. Doing the soldering was also not too much of an issue. We'll talk more about that in a second. But I just wanted to showcase this modification, some of the challenges I may have faced, and overall what I think and feel about this thing. So if you use the included shell that you already have, or you buy a replacement shell, you're going to have to modify this half of it. We're going to have to clip off those 2 pieces at the top that I showed. Very simple stuff. Just clip them off. I use these small little angle cutter thingies, flush cutters, whatever they're called. I'm not a scientist. I don't freaking know what everything's called, but you know what it is. So that's all that matters. And if anybody says, oh, this is the actual name of it, I don't care. I just know what they do, all right? And I probably said the name correctly anyway, so get off my nuts. And then to get the bottom part off, I just cut little pieces and then just pry it off with the angle cutters, the flush cutters, the Sharpie things that cut shit. And that's pretty much it. We just have to get those 2 tabs at the top and then that bottom barrier off. Very simple and easy to do. I do take like an X-Acto blade and kind of trim it all up and get it, flush so that there's nothing sharp sticking up. So that's one thing you may want to do as well. Just kind of clean it up a bit once you get this all pried off. Now, this little piece that came with the Q5 kit, it sticks to the inside where the screen will go as kind of a thing to hold it in place. It's just a double-sided sticker thingy. So we get that on there. I mean, the top part is the thicker piece of the sticker. The bottom part's the thinner piece. So you know how to put it on there and then just kind of remove what's not needed. And then we do have to peel it off. I just left it on there and then kind of double checked, make sure everything was going to fit. And then I peeled it off. And then we have to get our screen in there lined up. And you do have to take the protective film off because otherwise it's going to be stuck under there. And when you put this in here, you just line it up the top edge of the screen with that little tab that's on the upper left. The top should be flush with that and then just over all the way to the left. And you should be pretty good. But the nice thing with this, if you wire up the on-screen display options, say it's not perfectly centered, you could fix that and it saves it. I thought that was awesome. So from there, we get the board just tucked into the actual board, the system, with that ribbon cable there, and then just lock it in place. Those 2 wires that you see hanging off with the little pads there, those are like touch sensors that you mount to the top of the plastic on the shell. I'll do that, but it's kind of not 100% needed if you do the on-screen display, as I am wiring it up here. It's very simple. You just wire up the B, the A, the option button, and that was pretty much it. A, B, option, and battery. So you have 4 wires that you have to solder to the board. Like I said, this is completely optional, but it works out great to be able to access the menu to change the horizontal and vertical, orientation of the screen, to turn on the retro pixel mode, all that good stuff. But like I said, you could use those touchpads as well if you don't want to do all this. So you have that option. This is probably one of the easier mods that I've done for, a handheld. Now, I'm just kind of lining this up and then plugging in the actual screen to that board. And then we also have another sheet of like protective covering. We had one that we put on the back of the monitor, the screen, and then one that we put on the top of that. Get all our buttons back in there, and essentially we're done. We just have to put everything back together. The one thing I have to point out, if you do the wiring for the on-screen display, just make sure you kind of get everything tucked nicely and neatly out of the way of any of the screw holes for the posts for when you put this back together. So I kind of had to look at it a bit and figure it out, look at where all the screws go, but didn't have an issue. If you don't pay attention to that and you just kind of lay it in there and it looks okay, you may puncture one of the wires. The kit did come with the wires, mind you. I'll put links in the description for everything that I got. The other thing you have to do is remove that metal piece from the original shell if you're using a new shell, and then screw it back onto the new shell, and then get the battery connector in there if you're using a new shell anyway. If you're just using a original shell that you had, you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. Get everything screwed together, and we are ready to test this out. If you have any of the wires in the way, it may sandwich together improperly. So just pay attention to that to, make sure everything screws down flush and you're not damaging anything. It's still very simple, but we're going to get the batteries in there and test it out, show what this thing can do. So here we go, ready to test out the Neo Geo Pocket Color with the new IPS screen. I mean, I've been playing this quite a bit before I recorded this part, but yeah, I'm really impressed. I'm happy that I did this mod for this system. Just really brings it out, makes it easier, a hell of a lot easier to actually play this thing, because you don't need a direct light source right over you pointed at the screen to be able to see what you're doing. Now, I know previously they had a 2.2-inch TFT LCD screen mod for this system, but I was always hesitant on it because the screen was smaller. I just, I'm not going to go smaller. I want to go bigger. Go bigger, go home. This screen, it's slightly bigger by just a few percent, but not crazy. So it just works and it looks great. The viewing angles are awesome. The way the colors pop look great. Now, with this screen, there is a trade-off as far as battery life goes. Without putting a screen mod or anything in there, you should get around 40 hours or so of battery life on a stock Neo Geo Pocket Color. It's a lot of battery life, my God. With this mod, you're sacrificing that though. You're gonna get somewhere around 5 hours or so. And I'm perfectly fine with that. I use Eneloops and other rechargeable batteries, so I always have them on hand, and it just works out for me. So I think it's a fair trade-off. I'm not really stressing it. Now, the one thing I do want to point out that I had an issue with, and I'm not 100%. If anybody has any idea, please let me know, because I tried researching this and I can't find any information on it. Recently, we reviewed the Neo Pocket game drive, the flash cart for the Neo Geo Pocket Color, and it does work on this, but I had a couple times where I tried it and the screen didn't come on. I had audio, but I didn't see anything using that flash cart. I was like, man, did I screw up the installation? Is there a problem here? What's going on? I changed the batteries and it didn't happen again. So I didn't get that captured on footage, but when I changed the batteries, it just worked. So I think maybe the batteries might have had a lower charge on them. That could have been it, because a lot of times flash carts do require, more power. They always say to make sure you have a quality power supply on consoles and all that good stuff if you're running flash carts. So I'm not sure with that. Black screen a couple times, but playing on my original carts didn't have that issue. And playing the game drive, once I swapped batteries, it wasn't a problem at all. Now, using that on-screen display, I think is really awesome to have that, especially for the vertical and horizontal orientation of the gameplay area. I thought I had the screen in there pretty good, but part of the image was cut off a little bit. So using that to manipulate the play area to shift things around, I got it pretty much on point, and I'm very happy with that. I'm glad I wired it up for that, because if you don't use the on-screen display wiring, if you don't wire that up, you don't have access to it. If you use the touchpads, you have access to changing the color scheme, the retro pixel mode on and off, which Mind you, that retro pixel mode, I leave it on. I'm not a big fan of scan lines, and that's kind of what that is, but it looks amazing on this handheld. I don't like not having it. It just looks so much better using that, so I'm just leaving that as default. But yeah, you could change that and the brightness with the touchpad. So it's nice to have that, but I think going that extra step to get it wired up for the on-screen display really, brings it to the next level. You have a few more options in there. You can manipulate the colors by, red, green, or blue, reset to defaults, all that good stuff. So it's a very cool little mod. I'm extremely happy I did it. If you're interested, I'll have links in the description from places that I bought all these parts from. Love Neo Geo, love the Neo Geo Pocket Color. A lot of awesome games for this thing. And I appreciate you guys watching. So with that said, we'll catch you guys next time. Peace out, bye-bye, and boom. Bye.